Hi everybody. I'm so glad I get to visit with you. I'm sorry I've been away a while, but we've had company and we've been very busy. But yesterday we had the clearest day we've ever had, even though there's still fires. And it was beautiful. I felt rejuvenated. We opened the windows and let the air come in, and it was heavenly. And today is not quite as good, but it's a lot better. So they have made some headway on the fires. So pray for anybody suffering all over the world. There's so many things happening. And it's good to be conscious and thankful for what we do have. And another thing is, I couldn't help myself. I wasn't going to buy any more fells, but I couldn't help myself. And we went shopping on Friday, and I saw this. They had maybe a dozen Phalaenopsis. And some were put out already, but I didn't see one I wanted. And on their little table in the sort of off to the back, I saw some still in a long tray. And I saw one I really wanted, and no one was around. So it was right there. I mean, I could see it. So I think they didn't have room to put them all out. So I seen this orchid, and I had to get it. And so we're going to do this video on repotting your orchid from moss to bark, and all the ideas for preventing root shock. Because when we get shock to the roots, we get shock to the leaves and the rest of the plant. And any media that you change from one thing to another is going to create shock to the plant. Because if it's used to being in this very humid potting medium, and then you change it to another medium that's very dry with lots of airflow and holds moisture but not as much, those roots, no matter what change you're making, a lot of those roots will die off, and they will grow new roots to suit that environment. And I love bark. I have found once your orchid has changed to bark, you have a hardier, healthier root system. And for mine, it's helped them withstand this terrible heat and dryness that we've had. And the other consideration on using just bark is humidity. Humidity is very important. For instance, I left those two little orchids that were near death in the greenhouse, and it was over 140 degrees for a month, and I never took them out. I left them there, and they've been outside ever since. But because there's a pond in the greenhouse, and even though it was so hot in there, the humidity is what saved them. So for your fells, if you are living in a similar climate, let's discuss whether you should change to bark or you need a crutch in your bark. Now, our humidity can be the low 40s, sometimes even the upper 30s is probably the lowest we go in the winter. When the furnace is on, it's very dry, and it could be dry, freezing cold weather outside. We may go to the upper 30s humidity. Therefore, you need a crutch. I use my Mr. humidifiers, and they help me get that extra 10 degrees humidity. And how you use them. And there's other tricks we should talk about in another video, but you want to have your humidity running between 38, say, and then even up to 60. And if you can get that, your orchid will be happy in bark. If you're having trouble and your humidity just is always down around 40, you don't have any humidity, then you will probably have to add something to your bark to help with the humidity. Be it moss, and I hate using moss. I've had nothing but bad luck, and I know it's great. But each of us find what works for us best. So that crutch or Leica beads, because they hold moisture a little more, you could put them in with your bark. But if you're in a high humidity area, you do not want to be adding anything to your bark. So if your humidity, if you're near an ocean or a river or a lake and you've got more rainfall if you have very good humidity, you'll be very happy with just bark. And before we get started, I want to say patience. Patience is always the most important thing, because it takes Phalaenopsis are slow growers, and it takes them a while to get established. It's like if you move to a new community, it takes a while to get used to everything, and they take a while to get used to everything. And if right away you say, oh my God, because you looked at your plant and the leaves started to wilt, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to change the media. No, your plant's just telling you that it maybe is having trouble. It's too wet or too dry, and depending on what you got in your media. So you should check it. You should check it at least once a month on watering day to see how it's doing. But let's get busy with the fun begins, and we'll talk some more too. So I bought an orchid. It came in this pot. And of course it came with one of these, and we're going to use this for a trick later to be a crutch. So anyway, this is the pot it came in, and as soon as I got home on Friday, I put it in this pot. And I'm going to just stand up. And I took all the moss that was in it. I put a damp towel around it just to hold it so that it wouldn't fall over, because I loosened the moss and I took this much moss off. I took that much moss off. I picked a very good pot. My orchids like these pots. So I loosened, I stuck my finger up in the center, and I loosened bark. I tried to get some airflow in there. Now, they had just got these in, and why I chose this one. Now, there was two very nice aerial roots. One here with a nice growth thing, and one back here that has a little bit of damage on it. It has a little split. But I liked that. And there were a number of roots on the surface you can see here. Now these roots on the surface are more used to getting more air. They've not been in a pot with no air holes for air to get through. And so closer to the surface is the roots that'll probably keep this plant during the transplant shock. So the first thing you want to do is carefully and kind of patiently take all this. Oh, I should show you why. I'm teasing you. Look, these flowers are enormous. Look. I couldn't help it. They're so beautiful. So that's the one I chose, but I chose it. There was other ones that were the same color, top of the hill askews, but I chose this one because of the aerial roots. Even though they were a little damaged, they're still very good, and they can do their job. They're used to being they're used to more air. So what are they? They're hardier because they're used to more of their natural habitat. So in the forest, naturally, they're getting more air. So it's a little tricky picking all this out. So, and if your orchid has been in a different mix, if you're lucky enough to get it in bark, any damage you do to these roots, I have found, even going bark to bark, anytime you have to disturb a root, they don't like it. They don't like to be, I used to, soak them and slowly, if you have a terracotta pot, or even the inside of these pots are quite often terracotta, anything that the roots have stuck to, they're happy when they're stuck. They're healthier when they're stuck. They love it. They love to feel secure in their pot. So anytime you're going to disturb them, you get them a real good soak if the roots are stuck, and you can slowly pry them off. Or better yet, if they're staying in the same pot, leave them stuck. And the one good thing about bark is, even if you turn the pot upside down, you can get that bark, just shake it out. Just shake it out, and even some bark will stick to the roots. And it's a lot easier to get off if you soak it first. And if those pieces seem firm, I wouldn't even take them off, because I have found they don't like it. So the less damage you do to those roots, and it's part of the shock. And because we're already changing the media, because this just wouldn't work here in this climate. Now, see, even being in here a lot of time, the healthiest roots are the ones that have been near the outside of the pot. They're the healthiest. And also, now a lot of places are leaving these, you think you're bud an orchid in bark, but in the center, they've left the little moss plug in there, and you want to take that out as soon as possible, because it will even cause crown rot. It will cause a lot of rot, because what happens with old moss, and they're doing bulk orchids. They're not using the most expensive moss that they can get. And so then it's going to go acetic quicker than the bark is. And as far as bark, if you use Orchidia bark, they say it lasts longer. That's good. I use a lot of bark. I just use normal fir bark. I get Rexia's fir bark. I'm quite happy with it. But if you feel you can afford it, it is a very good bark. Apparently there's a lot of good success with it. And less shock, because they treat it with calcium dolomite, I think it is. And but when I soaked my bark, when I got home on Friday, I loosened the bark and put it in a pot where at least got air. Then I went out and got a bucket of bark and put some water in there. I added about 1/4 teaspoon of CalMag, and I added probably a tablespoon of seaweed extract. Stirred it around, put my bark in, and it's been soaking since Friday morning. I did it as soon as I got home. So that bark, anything that can absorb it will be on it. So it's all ready to be used. So we're getting a lot of this out, and when I rinse it, I usually leave these in. It helps me hold on to the plant and the orchid. So I just got to get all the moss, and I find it works good too if I always get a real good hold around the monopodial stem. And I'll give it a good wash before I see if there's anything rotten that has to come off. I used to use scissors, but you see, when I see something like this one, this has been in the center. It's no good. And if it'll just pull off, I pull it off. If it still wants to even leave the actual root is in behind the velamen, this outer coating, and I will just see this is all rotten. Now if this stays in a damp pot with damp moss all packed, it's just going to continue. Anything near it is going to continue the process of rotting. And I have started leaving even the root. I leave everything. Now once your plant is slowly adjusts, once a month, check it out, see how it looks, see if anything else needs cleaned up. But that's how I've been taking mine off. And I just leave as much as I can as long as it's not rotten. Now I'm just gonna put my thing in the sink so it doesn't all run down the drain. We had a plumbing emergency. The metal thing that you see from the sink that goes down, it's stainless steel, but it actually rusted right through. Oh boy, we had water. Jack had to fix it. Men are so lucky to get to fix these things. Unless the woman has had more training than the man, then she gets it fixed. But I don't. I'm good at some things, but when it comes to plumbing and electricity, oh dear. You know what I did one time? Talk about electricity. Nobody was around. And of course I'm moving a cabinet, and for some reason the plug, I was having trouble with the plug and it wouldn't come out of somewhere, so what did I do? Excuse me, I cut it. Of course it was still plugged into the wall. And my thumb went all black, and I felt my hair go shh. I mean, I lived through it, but never, 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 never. I try to stay away from electrical after that. So now you could get a pair of tweezers and get in there and get all this extra stuff. And what you want to do is just feel all these. See this one? That is going to pull off, but the other part is hard. Now if you weren't changing the media, you could clean up the roots a little bit better, but because we're changing the medium, we don't want to disturb anything we don't have to disturb. So as long as it's not rotten in the bark, it has more chance of not going rotten than if you put it into moss or something that holds more moisture. So I think we just about, I hate even to leave a little bit, because even a little bit I've had trouble with. So one more good rinse. Let's see if I can turn it upside down. And if you can turn it upside down and get right into that center area, like that. Now, I made this pot here. I made it years ago. I did a video where I painted this. We found this pot and it was all terracotta, and I cleaned it and painted it really good. But one thing I did forget was, and I pointed it out that day, that inside it was all black. Now, I had put an orchid in there and it wasn't paint. I don't know what it was, because when I this time went to scrub it, it all came off more like soot or something. I don't know what it was, but this time I cleaned it, because last time whatever it was killed the roots. So for years and years since I did this, I didn't look back to see when. I painted this, and Jack drilled holes in it. It had no holes in it. We don't know what it was used for, but it is terracotta. And So the inside is terracotta, so it will absorb some moisture and keep this a little bit more humid than these, which I love and still use. But today I decided to use this one. It is about the same size as the pot. It's about an inch bigger all around and deeper than this pot. And of course he drilled air holes. So, like a silly, I forgot my bark out where it's soaking. So I'm just gonna go get it, and I'm gonna put this baby right here on the basket. And you have to excuse me, I'm not prepared like I should be. I'll be right back. Okay. There we go. So I got my little pot with the bark, and I weighed it down with a dish, because if you have a bit of a concave dish, you can just put it in, because the bark will float, and then push it down and the water will sit in the concave part and hold it. So the bark has been really soaking since Sunday, so it's had a good 3 days soak, and it's medium size fir. It's all I use now. You could, if you have a pot that doesn't get as much air supply, you may want to add a little charcoal, to sweeten charcoal to put with it. But I have had no problem. So, and inside here, Jack put a piece of wire so that it ends about here. So if I put that and that, it's very similar. It's about an inch deeper and a more inch all the way around. So I'm just going to move this up a little bit so you can see better. There we go. Need a cameraman. So we're going to put the orchid in here. We're going to put a bit of bark in the bottom. There. Now you could also, if you want to save on bark, you could use some peanuts, but styrofoam peanuts, don't use the kind they make now that disintegrates and it's compostable. You can save the world and use the kind that isn't compostable for the bottom, or pieces of brick. Pieces of brick will add more humidity to your pot, so you have to consider that, because it'll absorb the water and stay longer. So there's another thing that you could put in your media. But I use bark, and if you're between the upper 30s and the 60s somewhere, then you're probably like us. I mean, you can't really say the weather is such and such anymore, because here we are under 100 degrees, forest fires, and happens all over the world. So I use a little bit of bark, and let's double check these roots. They're looking fairly nice. So I think there was only a few pieces I pulled off, but this was the day they got these. If they didn't get them Friday, they got them the day before, because, which is a good thing. Well, there's a piece I just pulled off. So I use my finger. I could cut more. I mean, you can see people will sometimes cut, but why? Because I'm changing the media. I'm not going to give it any more shock than is necessary. So, let's see if I can get up here better. Okay. Up, 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 up. There we go. Okay, so I got a bit of bark in the bottom, and I think I'll bring my bark around. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it in. I don't want any air holes left in there. This bark is used to being cuddled everywhere because moss is very close. It's going to want to feel stable in the pot. So you just have to make sure you're not leaving a big hole somewhere in there. So down. I always use my fingers, and you know, I don't know why, but I hate wearing gloves, and I feel like I'm just, I don't know, you know, there's what you should and shouldn't, and I'm saying you should probably wear, I'll probably get a splinter, but leave your aerial roots that were aerial roots, leave them on and leave them out, because they are going to be so happy. They're used to it. And those are the kind of roots that are very close to what grows inside bark. So what you want to do while your plant adjusts is keep some humidity around the leaves. Don't let them dry out. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. It's something new I'm trying, because I've been planting in bark for many years now, and there's always a time to try something new. And the ones that are used to a little more air are near the surface. And I'm slowly pulling it up and shaking this bark down. Now I'm going to give it a bit of a, yeah, it felt so nice. It felt so nice when I saw this. And Jack going, you really need another orchid? I think I do need another orchid. I really do. It has been stressful, because we've had fires and heat and no fresh air, and Mom had a sort of bad spell. If anybody has any magical cures for bed sores that seniors get, poor Mom, so we've got somebody coming in. We had a little trouble getting appointments and doing things. One doctor never showed up. He makes home visits. He didn't show up. So one thing after another, but we had her to the walk-in clinic. She's 100% fine, except for that. We've bought special cushions, and a nurse is going to come and change bandages. We have to take her for one appointment at the clinic, and then she'll have someone very professional coming to make sure everything, it's not too bad yet. We've caught it early. It's a big area, but we caught it early, and my brother, because he's up visiting, so him and I, we went down, and he came in, and he says, I won't look, Mom. He says, you're not going to look. He said, I won't look, Mom. He turned his head. But he was there to listen, and we got a young lady doctor at the walk-in clinic, and she was so nice. Now, what I think I might try is, I think I've got this in pretty good. Now, the barks was soaking, and I never rinsed it. And I left it in, and most of the fine stuff over the day, because I swished it around, and I swished as I'm getting, the fine sediments, which will not be good for airflow, have settled to the bottom of the pot. So, oh my, there's a piece of bark. But it's kind of dripping on the counter right now. So what I want to do is, I think I'm experimenting with the painted terracotta, because yes, there's a lot of airflow in these, and as a temporary adjusting, I don't want to stop airflow. Airflow, the importance I place on your orchid is humidity. Humidity is very important. Light is very important. Heat, they don't really like to be over 90. Heat is important. They don't want to get too cold, like in the winter. If you're setting them in a window, set them on top of something so they are not resting on something cold, keeping the roots cold. Even a heating pad some people will use. But I raise mine. I make sure they're not sitting on the cold windowsill. So that and airflow. Airflow, mine have been so happy we have ceiling fans. If you don't have a ceiling fan, if your orchids are in a community, because in a community, when you're trying to keep more humidity around your orchids, if you keep them together, even with some other plants, it all helps the community air. It all helps the humidity, and they become a crutch for each other. So the thing I want to try is they do send these. You get these with your orchid. And what I want to do is, I think I'll take this. Let me get a pair of scissors. Okay. There we are. I'm going to cut maybe, so it's just the normal orchid plastic. Okay. I'm going to cut some off the top, and I'm going to slip this. I'll let you get a better look in a minute, but I'm going to slip it up over the cascading flowers. This is where I need a cameraman. And then I'm going to make the turn. I'm going to get you up there. I'll try. Nope, doesn't go any higher. Okay, I'm going to make the turn very carefully. Let's turn it. But you'll see it in a minute. I'm going over the flowers, and I'm going to grab hold of one end. Whoop. Poor babies. They'll pretend that was wind. Now you could cut it down the seam and then tape it back together, which is probably what I should have done. But anyway, we've done this. Now what are we going to do? We're going to try leaving the leaves. You know, I probably should have cut it first in a humidity tank. Okay, that's not going to work. We'll use Jack's idea. Now you see I put those poor flowers through that, but you know what? It is something we want to try. So what I want to do is I only want the leaves in the tank. So this is something I was thinking might help the leaves not dry out, but still have your circulation everywhere else. And air will get in from the top and the bottom. So, okay, I know I'm crazy. So, hey, I need a plant clip there. And I'll just let that come down like that. Yes. It's like a greenhouse, but it's just for the leaves. Air is getting everywhere else. So, and the other thing is, I've seldom lost a flower or a bud. Once in a while, maybe just a bud. I've extremely seldom lost. I found it's more important to do this because you've seen those soggy ones. They just take more and more roots with them as time goes by if you don't do it right away. And I would rather take the chance of having more healthy roots going in the pot, even if they do take a shot. I would rather take the chance of that than losing more roots. So what I'm going to do is just make this tent around the leaves, and it just has to be a little bit, and some air will get in, and I'm going to leave that for a while, and I can change it. I can let it get air and I can change it, but it is going to help with the humidity. So it might look funny. Air can get in here. They're still going to get air, but they are going to hold a little bit more humidity. So I'm going to take you and finish this off with a quick little tour of how things are doing and a real look at this from a distance. So I know you think I'm crazy, but I think I've been doing lots of investigating, and I think that it's going to be good. Air is still getting in, but the leaves, they every evening when they're getting moisture, see, I could put some mist up in there, and I'm going to just use a little clip on the top, and that's what it's going to look like. But yeah, I think it was a little rough on it trying to put that same film. I was hoping it would kind of stand up on the saw, but it didn't work. But I think this was Jack's idea, and of course he's right again. So let's go over here. I am so happy with these orchids. So they're still on their little water tray in here, but they're sitting above it, so they're not soaking up any moisture from there. And we still have a nice new leaf coming here. And these are still in the Phalaenopsis. They're still doing really good. And I'm giving them every second day, and I'm giving these because there is a tiny bit of moss left, so I've been slowly, but look at more buds. It's just been in continual flower since I got it. And I got it on April 28th, and it has been in continual flower since then. So I do have a mister here. I haven't got it on because I forgot. And also being near the ferns is also good. Until I get my window, and boy, there is just nobody wants to do garden windows. I found one outfit, and it might be December. I don't even have a quote yet, but I'm telling you, I want it. So, I got a real mess over here. I got still company, so I still have to make lunch for everybody. So, these are doing good. Okay, let's go look in the window. This seems to like it here. And it's Grad-Cell Fine, a hurricane lamp, and the spider came with it. They're doing good. So my traffic cone. Now, the bark is dry because watering day tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm not sure, but you can see this bark is dry. But down in here, even though the bark is dry, this is as dry as it can get. Why? Because they're hardy. Those ones are a little closer to the humidity. And what I do is when I mist, I just do it in the air, but I mist the bowl. And those roots, they start growing down. You get lots of roots because they're growing to that humidity that you mist it. I'm not soaking in the holes, I'm just misting the side of the pot. So, a long time ago, I accidentally, when this was little, picked that leaf off, and it's still like that, but now we're getting so many nice new ones. Lots of new leaves. So this one's terracotta, So it was a lamp. We cut off the bottom and there was already a hole for the lamp, and it's upside down. It was a lamp stand. And this is my oldest orchid that's finally doing good now. She's slowly coming back. And in here, you see, these are aerial roots. But they're also going into the pot. They're also very healthy. Everything's getting new leaves. They've been suffering. I had to put them back in the window, but luckily I had blinds to put down here, but the other window I can't make use of. And remember this big one? Okay. This is the new one, and yes, it's shocked. And this is what I'm trying to prevent, and I know all the tricks you can use, and I've tried them all, and I keep trying. But I don't worry about it because this is one I've had a long time. I put on the other side. Those are the original leaves. And they got a little better, but now they're just there, and these are all nice, firm, hard, beautiful leaves with lots of nice roots, even though watering day is coming. But what I like in here is lots of nice roots coming. Look at this. Lots of nice roots coming, and both sides, and a new leaf. So I'm not worried. Patience, patience, it's worth it. If it's a year you wait, it's worth it. Slipper orchids. Okay, now let's go in here. Okay, I got one yellow leaf I will be splitting. I should do another video coming up, but this is, look at these nice roots growing. Yeah. And this one. Lots of new growth. And look at this, the big lip. I let her flower, I let her keep her 3 flowers because that's what she wanted to do. But lots of new leaves coming. Even this, I wish I could find this size traffic cone. It has to be the sort of rubbery ones. They hold the paint good. The plants love them. So really, if I could find that size again, I'd be happy. And Phalaenopsis is in the back. If you have one, oh, even though they say, you know, the thin leaves can take more sun, not these. It's a species, and it does not like sun. It likes a life similar to a slipper orchid. That's what it likes. So over here, these are my 2 that were struggling, and they're both getting new leaves. And they're also getting roots. Nice new roots coming. So I think they're going to be good too. So a year from now, I won't be saying these are my 2 that are struggling. So we'll have a quick look out the window. And I'll show you how much our smoke has gone back. We hadn't seen the lake, and we hadn't seen the mountains in so long. And now there's still smoke, but so much better. So thanks for joining me. Any questions, email me, Carolyn Orchid friends@yandex.com, and very soon there's going to be a Mr. being giving away, maybe around the 13th or something like that. So I will be back on that day and maybe another day. So have a good one, everybody.